Well, we've reached a pretty big milestone with this episode. Friday, December 20th, 1991, was the single busiest release day for the Famicom. 10 Famicom games were released that day, desperately trying to get those last few sales before the Famicom was gone forever. And if we carry that into Saturday, another 5 games were released. That's right, I'm going to be spending more than 2 weeks covering a single weekend. And I'm starting here with Asmik-kun Land. Who is Asmik-kun? Well, they're the pink dinosaur that Asmik has been using as their mascot for a while. Asmik-kun has actually already had 2 games, both of them for the Game Boy, and the first one released all the way back in 1989. Asmik-kun Land is their first outing on a console rather than a handheld, and it's also Asmik-kun's final game. And what is this franchise killer of a game? Well, it's a platformer, and it's one of the nastiest, cruelest, meanest platform games I think I've ever played. This game is trying to destroy you. In my 1 hour of play, I beat 3 of the 16 stages. The plot is that Asmik-kun wants to get rid of the monsters that live on their island. To do that, they need to recover 6 fragments of a magical talisman. The controls are about what you'd expect. Hit A to jump and B to attack. If you hit an enemy with an attack, then they turn into an egg that you have to collect before it hatches. The eggs are the only way to get power-ups in the game. They act as currency which you use to get power-ups and extra lives. At any time as you're playing, you can hit select to bring up this menu. This shows any power-ups that you might have purchased, but in the lower right-hand corner, you can go to Sell, and that's actually where you buy power-ups. Choosing Sell summons the egg merchant who you sell your eggs to. And besides the power-ups, you could buy additional points, which do nothing, so don't do that. Or you can trade all of your eggs for a chance at a lot of extra lives. This means that it's actually kind of difficult to get a game over in Asmik-kun Land. If you start running short, then just collect 10 eggs with your next life and go into the extra life game. The worst case scenario is that you're costing yourself 1 life to do this, but you're gaining a lot more than that. And any power-ups that you've purchased persist, even if you run out of lives and have to continue. Though not if you use the password, which you get by running out of lives and choosing not to continue. You can use those power-ups whenever you like, and most of them run on a fairly short timer, perhaps 15 seconds tops. This icon lets you roll around at the speed of sound, but unlike the more popular character whose game was released 6 months before this, rolling is not an attack. You'll die if you run into something. Flight is exactly what you'd expect, it just lets you freely move around the screen. The hexagram destroys all enemies on the screen, and this icon makes you move very fast and jump further, though that usually means you just jump into something and die. The clock icon freezes enemies in their place, and the little angry icon lets you be invincible. The bubbles are a rebreather so you don't have to come up for air while you're swimming, and the icon that says 1 OK lets you take 1 hit. I'd actually recommend buying that one, and then if you ever get hit, buying it again. The final 3 items change your attack. I-beams shoot upward at an angle, while the ball rolls around on the ground and falls down. And finally, fire just extends the range of your attack. If you manage to complete 2 stages, then you have a boss fight, and these are not direct combats. You play rock, paper, scissors against the boss, who generally has some kind of pattern that you can exploit. This one always throws paper, for example. After you win a round, hold down A to advance on the balance beam. The bar at the top shows your balance, and you'll have to use left and right to keep in that range. When you cross a dot, a minion will appear behind you, but it will only advance if you screw up the rock, paper, scissors. You keep moving forward like this, replaying rock, paper, scissors after a few seconds of movement, or if you lose your balance, until you eventually reach the boss, and that's a victory. The big thing you're going to notice in Asmik-kun Land, the thing that makes it especially rough, is that the stages are absurdly long. We're talking 3 to 5 minutes to complete each one. You move slow, and enemies are often placed so that you really have to play cautiously, and then any hit will kill you, sending you back to the start of the level. There are no checkpoints here. It's extra bad because the game tends to throw some really nasty curveballs at you. Like on this second stage, if you stand on any of the yellow puffballs, you get the hiccups. They make you stop and hop in place every few seconds, even if you're in the air jumping over a hole or attacking an enemy. You can cure them with some of the power-ups. On this stage, you're descending a mountain and you can't see what's below you, so naturally they put spikes on the final drop-off at the bottom. And when you die, you lose all of your eggs. There's around 60 enemies on every stage, so at least you can use those abilities a lot. In Japan, Asmik-kun Land is not well regarded. The consensus seems to be that it's a pretty bad game, entirely due to its absurd difficulty. If it wasn't this difficult, it would still be a pretty lackluster platformer. Asmik-kun just moves too stiffly, and the stages really aren't anything to write home about. But you add in that nastiness, and Asmik-kun Land becomes a game that people who are looking for an absurd challenge might enjoy. A bit. Kind of. Look, you're still gonna find it bad, it's just bad in a different way. At least it's memorable, assuming you don't give yourself a concussion by pounding your head against the wall with this one.